Please help. I'll do anything. Please, just make it stop.
Now, some of you don't know this, but for a long time, I've been doing private one-on-one video coaching calls with a lot of viewers like you who are on my channel on my website, dobermanplanet.com. And really, there's been no shortage of business. And a lot of the reason why is because there's a lot of first-time Doberman owners out there who just do get in over their head with their first Doberman, and they just need that private one-on-one coaching to help them out. But to be honest with you, the purpose of this video really is to kind of put those coaching service calls out of business. Hopefully, guys, by the end of this video, we will absolutely destroy any need you have to hire me or really anyone else like me to help you out with your Doberman by going over the 5 most common pitfalls that new owners get stuck in when they're raising their first Doberman. And at the end of this video, we're gonna go over the biggie, the one that I'm seeing all the time that just happens again and again that really causes new owners to, well, kind of fall on their face. So let's jump straight into it. First up, one of the most common issues I see is an owner who unknowingly buys a puppy that's from a high drive line of dogs and brings them into a really calm, relaxed family environment. You know, when breeders are breeding for dogs that excel at certain working sports like bite sports or agility work or that kind of thing, they will breed certain character traits into them, like being extra energetic, having like tons of energy, really assertive, a little bit on the dominant side, certain traits that help them excel at those sports. But now you bring them into a kind of a calm, relaxed family environment where they're gonna be very unlikely to get the outlets they need, and a first-time Doberman owner that is bringing them into their home and doesn't know how to handle this, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. I mean, the Doberman breed as it is already pretty assertive and headstrong, which is already a shock for some new owners of Dobermans, but it's even more so the case if you get one of these working line dogs that just has tons of this drive and energy. Owners who find themselves in this situation will often be struggling with anxiety issues in their dog because they're just not getting the mental and physical stimulation that they need, and so they'll often have like incredibly difficult times through the puppy stages, especially when the puppy is like really testing the boundaries. They'll often have crying issues, high separation anxiety problems, barking issues, even potentially biting issues as a result. Now, how do you handle this? Well, it all really starts with the puppy search itself when you're looking for a breeder to work with. When you're calling breeders, just ask them, what are they breeding for? What are their goals in their breeding program? What kind of dogs are they trying to produce? And if you can, meet the parents of the puppy as well. Just meeting the parents, you can kind of see how the dogs interact, how they behave, how they interact with the breeder. That's incredibly important too. And ask the breeder what's important in their relationship with their dog. If they say things like the bite work that they do or the agility sports they do, this could indicate that the dog is kind of a high drive working line of dog. Now, number 2 is giving up too early. Now, I can recognize these people from a mile away because usually the puppy is under 1 year of age, and 9 times out of 10, there's somebody else in the household with them who is urging them not to get a Doberman puppy, but they got one anyway. I almost always see it's both those two things when they come to me, and usually they come to me as like a last resort before giving up their dog and deciding it's just too much for them. And you know, it just comes from a lack of experience. They don't know that this is really normal behavior for working breeds in general, and especially for the Doberman, that it's just a lot of work before that 1 year. You know, they get frustrated with having to hover all the time and redirect them from the puppy biting and nipping, the chewing on things, the potty training, socializing them, not letting them push the boundaries. All these things really get them overwhelmed, and they don't see an end in sight, and usually they have that other person in their ear in the household telling them, oh, it was a mistake, you shouldn't have done it, these Dobermans are hard, they're too much to handle. And they kind of want to throw in the towel because they just think this is how life's going to be. It doesn't register them that this is just a temporary stage. They just think this is how it's going to be from here on out. So how do I handle this type of situation with owners who call me? Well, in reality, a lot of times they just need a pep talk from me. They need to know that they're not off track, that everything their dog is doing is normal for this young age, and that this is not how life is going to be inevitably forever with your dog. That's not the case at all. We do develop a plan and we work on something to really get them on track and exactly how to handle like the worst of it. Some of them will be struggling specifically, let's say with a puppy biting and nipping or somewhere else. And we get them a plan to address those the correct way so they can see the results as quick as humanly possible. But then the answer after that is just to put your head down, dig your heels in, and stay rock solid consistent and know that it's temporary. It's so hard to not see this as a temporary stage when you've never done it before, but when you've raised a few Dobermans, you start to realize this is temporary and you'll get through it as long as you're consistent and you have a plan that gets you efficient results. Now, speaking of training plan, the next one is when they have a lack of a training plan. That's a really common pitfall. If they don't have something figured out beforehand, before they get the puppy, they tend to get in trouble. And a lot of times they're having trouble with the dominance of the dog. A lot of the puppy biting and nipping stages, or ignoring commands that the dog knows. These types of things will come in, and really when I get to the root of it, it's that they had a lack of a training plan from the beginning. One thing that really sticks out to me that calls attention that this is the issue is when I ask them, what have you tried already to fix this problem? And they'll respond with something like, oh, I've tried everything in the book and nothing works. That's just a cue to me that they didn't have a plan that they've stuck to. Now, how do we handle this? A lot of these people don't realize that the reason that they're having all these issues is because they've tried everything in the book to fix the issue. And their dog has seen them switching training plans up over and over and over again. They see this as a lack of confidence, and they can exploit that. Dobermans are incredibly intelligent, and they start to get more headstrong, more stubborn in their defiance of what they're trying to train them. And it just kind of snowballs from there. And really, what they need to do is develop a training plan ahead of time, and I help them with that and help them make a training plan that's specific to their dog and their dog's drives and motivations that can work, in my opinion, as efficiently as possible and have them stick with it. I mean, when they give me the list of things that they've tried and I go through the list, 9 out of 10 of them would work fine if they would have stuck with it at different speeds. You know, some of them would have worked really quickly for their dog if they would have stuck with it. Other ones would have taken a bit longer, but they just didn't stick with it. So it seems like none of them worked. So I develop a plan that'll work as efficiently as possible. I tell them to dig their heels in, stay consistent, act confident when they're training their dog, and do not waver at all, and especially don't switch to another technique, and everything's gonna be fine. Now, the next most common reason is simply just giving in. They just give in too much. And a lot of these owners, they love their dogs so much, and I can't blame them. I mean, they're willing to spend a lot of money to get private one-on-one coaching for their issues, but this immense love for their dog sometimes makes it hard for them not to become a total pushover, and that has serious consequences. A lot of these people sometimes will take the dog for a walk as soon as the dog demands it, or give them treats as soon as they demand it, or let them stay up on the couch even though they told them to get down, but the dog's looking really cute and kind of complaining about it, so the owner just walks away. Or the dog plops themselves up in their lap or forcibly shoves themselves up in their lap, and the owner allows it because they're kind of giving in too much and they're being too much of a pushover. This can really snowball down the road and lead to some behavior problems. You know, I usually see this in dogs, 6 months to 8 months of age, 9, 10 months of age or so is when this starts to happen or get really bad anyway. But eventually, if this is allowed to continue and the dog's an adult and the owner finally does make a firm boundary that they're not going to waver on, it can lead to some serious conflicts, even potentially biting issues. So how do I handle this with my clients? Well, really, we just talk a lot about setting firm boundaries and not letting them waver no matter what. For example, if the dog is forcing himself up in your lap and you say no, and it's a real firm no, and that's the answer. They cannot come up. They can't be cute or convince you any other way or whine or cry and come up. In fact, if they do that, it becomes firmer, and maybe you'll even tell them to go to their bed and sit down there for a minute. If, let's say, partway through that interaction, you do change your mind, you're like, okay, yeah, you know what, actually, I made a mistake. It would be nice to have them up on the couch. Okay, you've already told them no. For the sake of the greater good, let it be no for 5 or 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, you can say, okay, come here. I'm letting you up now because I decided to. And now you've reinforced this good behavior, and setting these boundaries in the future will be easier, not harder. If you let that dog convince you to change your mind after you say no, then setting your boundaries in the future will be more difficult, trust me. So we do that, and then we also talk a lot about being a strong, consistent leader, because that's really what's necessary here, and that brings me on to my final point. Before we talk about the absolute biggest trap that the most new Doberman owners fall into and get stuck with that really messes them up, I do want to take a quick second to ask you to please subscribe down below if any of this has been helpful whatsoever for you. That way I can keep chipping away and making your life just a little bit easier every single time I release one of these videos. That's my goal anyway. Hit the subscribe button, the bell icon next to it. That would be great. And then also, if you need help with your Doberman, I always have some resources, including in this video, down in the description down below. Now, number 5, the biggest trap where new Doberman owners get stuck is lack of leadership. You wouldn't believe how common this is among the calls that I get, guys. This is where the owner kind of sets negotiable boundaries. They can kind of be more of that pushover like I discussed earlier. They allow the dog to do some dominant things like jump up on them, go through a door before them. Maybe they don't give them consistent training times every day where they work with the dog so they reinforce their position as a leader. And then this leads to just a lot of behavior problems, like really long and drawn out puppy biting and nipping stages that just sometimes may not ever end, and that's where it gets really kind of scary when the dog gets older, or aggression towards other dogs or other people in the house, even towards the own owner. It can lead to refusal to move off a certain spot when they're told to get down or told to move. They might ignore commands that the owner gives them that the dog knows very well, commands that they've already been trained in, but they'll just ignore the owner anyway. And even when it gets really bad, marking behaviors inside the house, even though the dog has been previously potty trained. So how do I handle this with my clients? Well, really I ask them to do a complete attitude shift with how they deal with and interact with their Doberman. They make the rules in the house, and quite frankly, they just need to start acting like it, and they need to start portraying that confidence to their dog. And it's not a cruel thing or a harsh thing. It's a consistency and setting expectations thing, which is something that your dog craves and needs and looks to you for. So really, in my opinion, it's cruel not to provide that for them. And you would not believe the number of behavioral problems this solves and the number of behavioral problems that have their root in a lack of leadership. I ask my clients to do little things throughout the day, little tweaks to how they interact with their dog that really reinforces their position as the alpha or as the leader in their pack in the home. In fact, I did a video all about this, which should be popping up in the corner of your screen, all about how to be seen as a strong, consistent leader in the house by your Doberman. And honestly, if I could pick one video that I think would have the biggest impact on the most viewers on my channel who are suffering from behavioral problems, especially in Dobermans that are under about a year of age, I would say to have them go watch that video multiple times over. Guys, I love, and I mean I truly do love, helping my viewers with the one-on-one coaching services I have. It's just so satisfying to me to see the change that I can make in a family, and like I love it. But I do realize that it does help one family at a time. Whereas these YouTube videos, which I put out basically for free, they have the ability to help so many people all at one time, which is just, it's really satisfying too. So yeah, I guess you could say that this video is meant to take a big divot out of the number of requests I get for my coaching services, because it's a little bit of a pride thing, I guess you could say. I want to know that these YouTube videos are helping people, and I'm doing the best that I possibly can at it. I really hope this list of the most common pitfalls I see new Doberman owners getting trapped in has been helpful for you. If it has, please subscribe down below. I would love it, and I love to keep hanging out with you and chipping away, making your life just a little bit easier, one video at a time. So thank you so much for watching. Keep being great Doberman breed ambassadors. Stick with it, especially for those of you with a Doberman under 1 year of age. It'll get easier. Just be consistent, do what you know you need to do, and everything's gonna be fine. All right, I'll see you next time.